Disaster, podcast about disasters and the music they make us listen to. I'm Peter, and I'm here with my co-host.
I am Leigh.
Awesome, and today we're talking about the bomber blitz in New York City.
Oh, man.
Last week we were talking about, last episode we talked about ancient Greece. Today we're moving forward a little bit to 1945.
Hey.
New York City.
New York City.
Yeah, during the Second World War still.
During the last gasp of the World War II.
That's right. Actually, it's surprisingly close to it, but we'll get to that in a second.
All right.
So.
Went out with a bang, did it?
Oh.
I get this show.
So, we're going to start off by talking about the flight of Old John Feather Merchant.
Great name to start.
They just name their bombers weird things.
Yeah.
I guess like
Enola Gay?
Yeah. Which I guess was that someone's mom's name or something?
Oh, I don't know the story behind it.
There is a name that was that, which I guess
Sure.
spins off into a conversation about names in the 40s being weird.
Or maybe people being a little more mature back then.
That's fair.
Like not being Enola Gay.
Yeah.
We've come a long way.
We sure have. So anyway, Old John Feather Merchant. So Old John Feather Merchant was a B-25 Mitchell medium-sized bomber.
All right.
So flew a ton of missions in the Second World War. They were introduced in the 1940s. They mostly flew in the Asia-Pacific conflict.
Okay.
They've got like they're like the bombers that have like, they had a nose turret and a tail turret and a turret on top.
Sure.
Wasn't quite as big as like the Lancaster. If you remember what that one looked like. That had a few more turrets. It's a little bit bigger. I think in terms of weight, it was like almost twice the size. This one's about 11,000 kilograms, which I looked up, and that's about the size of like a school bus in terms of weight.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's full of children or not full of children. For the sake of imagery, I'll say not full of children.
Say not.
Yeah. So that's what we're talking about. B-25 Mitchell bomber. And what's happening today was specifically on July 28th, 1945.
Okay.
So when I say close to the end of the Second World War, obviously nobody really knew it was close to the end.
Right.
But for context, the bomb was dropped on Hiroshima on August 6th.
Okay.
And Nagasaki August 9th. So we're like right near the end.
Considered the official
pretty
sort
much
of end of the
like 6th,
conflict.
They still didn't give up. And then 9th, Japan was like, can't keep doing this. So,
right. Because Japan hung in there a little longer than Germany, did they not?
They did, yeah.
It was like months.
Yeah, because the Pacific was messy, and I would get the timing wrong, because but they hung in a little bit longer.
Right.
It was a bloody conflict, and they had actually, I remember, Japan like declared that they would fight to the last man, essentially.
Okay.
Like, bring it on, every last Japanese person is going to fight until we're all dead. So
I'm sure the general Japanese public were thrilled about that.
Yeah, right. Can you?
Not all of us. No.
Not all. But either way, like, U.S. shut that down.
All right.
That's not what we're talking about today, but that's for context. Like, we're talking 28th July. We're like weeks away from the war coming into like a
And the war
definite end.
started
39.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, so long.
It's
and
a long time.
I'm sure we'll have other stories that happen in that time frame, but this one's kind of like a little standout.
Right.
So, Old John Feather Merchant on this case was piloted by Lieutenant Colonel William F. Smith.
Okay.
27 years old. He was a decorated veteran. He had 2 years of combat service. And later on, I've got a little sidebar about just like to expand on what combat experience means. Not his specifically, but just to give you an idea of like people in this time.
Okay.
And so he was flying from Bedford, Massachusetts to Newark, New Jersey, Newark Airport.
Okay.
And he just had 2 passengers. He had a staff sergeant and a young sailor. It was basically like a routine flight. I guess he was just like transporting the bomber from one place to another. And people were like, "Hey, can I get a ride?"
Right.
That kind of thing.
Okay.
So that's kind of that's a context, basically.
Gotcha.
Immediately trouble brewing. Obviously, we know the title of the podcast.
Yeah. It's not going to be good.
So let's talk about the weather.
Let's talk weather.
Surface fog. So basically, like when he was taking off, already like low visibility, foggy conditions. Not fantastic.
That's nothing to Captain Smith.
No, it is not. To a
Nah.
27-year-old combat veteran.
Yeah.
Think back to when we were 27.
Yeah.
I got this.
No problem.
Drizzle. But, drizzle by itself, surface fog by itself, already a problem. We got those two together.
Okay.
Low cloud ceiling, 200
Okay.
meters, so 700 feet, 200-meter cloud ceiling. It's pretty low.
So you're flying blind
Pretty much. It's like instrument flying conditions.
in the 40s.
And I think visibility, it said visibility about 5 kilometers, which I guess when you're flying is not that much.
Right. Oh,
Like-
plenty. Oh, wait, probably sucks.
Yeah, not when you're flying fast. And even then, like visibility 5 kilometers, that's probably like visibility through fog, drizzle, and a low cloud ceiling. So like you can see something, but it's like shapes. Barely.
and glare from
Yeah.
whatever lights you got.
So like one of these is a problem on its own in open sky. But this guy's flying from Boston to Newark. So there's things in the way. You're not like flying over the Atlantic where
No.
like if you get turned around, not too much in the way.
No.
So anyway, so as he's flying, LaGuardia Airport in New York City, he's advised by the control tower at LaGuardia that he should land because, the conditions are crappy.
Yes.
And the sooner you can get put down, the better because you're flying past a major city.
Come into this metropolis with your giant school bus plane.
Yeah.
Godspeed.
Yeah.
Good luck. Please don't.
Yeah,
Screwing it
exactly. So just land before it gets worse is what they're saying. And
You fool.
exactly. But I mean, Smith was so close to Newark. He's like, I can do
I'll get
this,
there.
right?
Hop,
It's like
skip, and a jump.
you're driving your car and it's like raining, and you're like, I can make it one more exit.
Sure.
Why would I stop now?
You're so close.
Yeah, like, it's like you get it, but it's like not a. You're flying, man, and you're flying in the 45. You're not flying with GPS, and like this is still like
You got a compass in your wits.
basically, and you have like instruments that tell you your altitude, and like I think
Sure.
you probably have like whether you're level or not.
Yeah, yeah.
But you don't have like global positioning. You don't have people in control towers with like their radar telling you
yeah.
where to go. So
Yeah, God knows what they had in the
yeah,
control tower.
yeah. Basically, it'd be like
Some spit and some gum
I'm
and some gumption.
basically this is a 45 during the war.
That's right.
If you're 27 and 45 and you're a 2-year combat veteran, you don't have too many concerns.
No.
So basically, they contacted him one more time
Okay.
after him thinking that he'll just keep moving.
All right.
And they basically warned him that the clouds are so low that they're obscuring a certain iconic New York City landmark,
Oh, really?
the Empire State Building.
Oh, boy.
So, a little bit about the Empire State Building. So it was, this is kind of interesting because I didn't really know anything about it. And there's a stat in here that blows my mind to read it.
Okay.
So it was built on the site of the former Waldorf Astoria. That's not what blew my mind, but it's kind of, that's neat. If anybody ever asks you in trivia.
Hotel, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, or at least it used to be. I guess. I don't know if they moved it. Whatever. We're not talking about the Waldorf. We're talking about the Empire State Building. So construction began in 29 when they started demolishing the hotel. But like when they started like laying foundations and building in 1930, and they finished it in 1931. 13 months.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
It's pretty tall.
It's
Pretty,
it's 300
robust
380 meters tall.
Good Lord.
So 1,250 feet, 102 stories.
How many casualties during the building? I know you have that stat.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
I know you're looking at that right now.
We'll get there.
Okay.
And it's actually impressive for some reasons.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get there.
Because men were men.
We're men.
Just kidding.
Right. So built in completed in 13 months of work. That's a pace of 4.5 floors a week.
Oh my God.
So I don't know if
That is incredible.
I'm going to be really bold and talk about construction in Ottawa, because nobody talks about that.
No, that's you keep pretty shush about that.
They built 102 stories in 13 months.
Wow.
And how long does it take them to like build a bridge in Ottawa?
Well,
Or maybe
I'm watching the what is to be the tallest building in Ottawa be constructed before my eyes on my street every day, and I don't think it's, what did you say, 4 floors a month?
4.5 a week.
It's definitely not that.
It is not that.
It will be done by now.
That building, yeah, like Preston and Carling.
Yeah, exactly.
That has been
It's
in
not
construction.
it's not at a standstill, but
No, it's moving, but
Yeah.
it's been moving since like 2014. It's been a couple of years at least that they've been working.
While. But, maybe, I'm sure construction's come a long way since
Yeah,
1930.
when I read that stat, I was thinking like health and safety standards and like you get pictures. You don't get pictures of people eating lunch on girders anymore.
in their undershirt and
exactly.
little newsy caps.
Yeah. So maybe different standards.
Yeah.
And I guess
Probably
I didn't
better.
I didn't look up stats on like how many people died while it was being built, which might be a whole disaster on its own.
I'm so disappointed in you.
I tried to resist the temptation of going beyond the book. There's a couple
as much death and despair as you can muster into one.
There's a couple
podcast.
spots that I cheated this time. I told you that like I did a little bit of extra research.
Right.
Like the weight of a school bus and some stuff later on.
Yeah.
But anyway, so 380 meters tall.
Okay.
Technically, it goes to 443 meters because it has like a spire at the top.
It's got that. Yeah.
If you refer to your visual aid, I've got a Lego set here. It's like the architecture one.
A Lego architecture set of New York City.
Yeah, actually, the back is even better.
Oh, there you go.
There's the Empire State Building. And then you've got that spire at the top.
There's the spire,
Yeah. So it goes with the spire, it's 443 meters.
All right.
And the spire, I always kind of wondered about it, and I'm like, why is that just like to technically become the tallest? In the case of the Empire State Building, it was intended to be used as a station for airships.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's an antenna, or is it sort of a visual?
It's like they would, like that's where they would anchor, and then people would disembark onto the Empire State Building.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
That is cool.
To be fair,
that's pretty
airships.
Steampunk.
Exactly. I don't know if you watched Fringe, the TV show,
No.
but in the alternate dimension, like they still have airships and they still dock at the Empire State Building. But
dirigibles,
indeed.
You
so
don't get to trot that word.
Like
every day.
to be. Last time I heard the word dirigible was in a song lyric written around 2009.
Okay,
we can talk about that later.
By Mumford and Sons. No, it's not.
No. To be fair, airships didn't really do that well, but maybe we'll get into that one.
Is there some disaster related to airships?
Yeah, I'll have to look it up.
Nothing that comes to mind.
Staring at the Led Zeppelin cover.
Oh yeah.
So at the time, it was the tallest building in the world.
Right.
It was actually the tallest building in New York City until World Trade Center 1 was completed in 1971.
Okay.
And that one was 417 meters.
Yeah.
So I guess they're not counting the spire. So like, if you remember, obviously you remember the World Trade Centers, that was like a big building, and the building itself went to 417 meters.
Yeah. And it's in the Lego set here too. And
yeah.
The building itself is above the spire.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So in a kind of morbid bummer way, the Empire State Building, it was the tallest building in New York City again between 2001 and 2012.
Right.
When they completed work on the new World Trade Center. So now I kind of like this because the new World Trade Center, the building itself is 417 meters. Mm-hmm. With the spire, it's 541. So I kind of like it's the same. The building itself is the same height as the original World Trade Center. Okay. And then it's got what I like to call the fuck you spire on top. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, same height. And here's some more. So
you think you've seen a spire? You don't know from spires.
No, you sure don't.
Yeah.
Still not the tallest building in the world. That's in Abu Dhabi. Yeah, in Dubai. Yeah. So that was a bit about the Empire State Building.
Okay, sidebar. Good sidebar.
Thanks. There's another one coming. But that was the first sidebar.
That's all right.
I got bars on bars.
We're all about the sidebars within the sidebars.
So coming back to the blitzing itself. So if you remember, LaGuardia warned Smith about the conditions and advised his landing.
Okay.
Smith's reply, and the book says he says this laconically, so I'm going to try laconic. Roger, Tower, thank you. I don't want, but like, this comes back to what...
It's probably about right. Maybe that level of sarcasm hadn't been achieved in the 40s.
No, exactly. But like...
Bye.
Yeah. Thanks. But like, on a more serious note, I hear it that way in my head because I think back to what I was saying before, like thinking back to the confidence you had when you're 27 years old. Add to that you're a combat veteran, you've flown bombers for 2 years at this point. And now like you're flying like from Boston to New York and somebody's like, the weather's a little bad, you should land.
And apparently those those bomber runs were like a death sentence.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I'll give a quick sidebar. My great uncle who passed away last year, age 95, he flew. I can't remember. He might have been in the little bubble, but he was in those planes, and he said every time you went out, you just sort of, in the back of your mind, it was, I probably won't be coming back.
Jesus.
And you either dwelled on that and locked up with fear, or you just went for it.
Wow.
And he wrote this. He didn't write it.
Right.
Someone interviewed him for the what's the paper in Toronto, like the
Star or
no,
maybe not that.
Globe and Mail. Maybe.
Oh, okay.
About his experiences there, and he had some crazy details.
Wow.
I can send you the link, but it's nuts.
I want to read that. Maybe we'll
we'll
link it in the description.
Oh yeah, we should, because it's like it was just chaos.
Yeah.
Like he watched planes fly, like Allied planes fly into each other because there's no rhyme or reason.
Right.
And he just we was watch this and go, oh well.
Jeez. So I imagine Smith was same kind of situation.
Same kind of thing.
So
the
you're
weather's bad.
Yeah, I got this,
right, fellas.
And
so what did he say?
He said, Roger Tower, thank you.
Laconically?
Yeah.
Let me give it a try.
Yeah.
Roger Tower, thank you.
That's probably exactly what it was. That's what it was. That's exactly, yeah. The breath and like, you can hear it.
Signing off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so it's unclear exactly what happened, obviously, because we don't have like black boxes and GPS and stuff.
Yeah.
But most likely what happened is that Smith got disoriented in the fog, drizzle, low cloud ceiling.
That's probably what happened.
He thought he was near Newark and preparing to land because his landing gear was down.
Oh, okay.
Which,
eesh, bit of an overshoot.
Yeah, a little bit. So at this point, people on the ground are starting to catch on. And last time, again, we had, if you remember, we were talking about Thucydides, the Greek historian, would give us like a lot of accounts.
Oh, yeah.
What's nice, quote unquote, or what's
helpful
about, there we go, thanks. Helpful about more recent disasters is that you get like eyewitness accounts that are a little bit more like tangible.
Yeah.
So, here's one from a guy named Vincent Galbo. It's nice that the book has these names. This is what I'm saying too. Like you can like name a person. At the time, it's like the standard ancient Greek, and now it's like Vincent Galbo.
Here's
I could probably look him up.
Yeah, who's on a census and whatever.
Yeah. So anyway, he spotted the B-52 roaring by near the 22nd floor.
He was in the building?
No,
he was in a building.
So I think this might be a guy who was on the like just standing on ground level.
Oh, okay.
But
so
22nd stories
22nd
that's not so high. Like 22nd stories, like I can see the wheels kind of thing.
You might. The best baseball player in the world could throw a baseball that high.
Yeah. Let's put it that way. Let's do it.
That's probably not true.
Don't look it up. Okay. That's a fact. Now.
That's fact. No,
it's in there.
Yeah.
But it's funny you should mention that other thing because people were torn from their desks by windows rattling and the roar of engines of a plane flying by way too low.
Jesus.
So like you're in your office tower, you're doing your legal assistant work or whatever. Clacking exactly. And then a plane, like you're like, take a break, you lean back and you're like, I wonder what's going on outside. Like
that's not normal.
Eye level. Like that feels a bit low.
Yeah.
And actually, so people on the observation roof of the RCA building at the Rockefeller Center, right around that area, they saw the plane flying by 100 feet below them.
Wow.
So you're like up on, like you're looking at the skyline.
So because he's coming in for a landing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're up on the observation tower. They're looking around like New York City landmarks. And then it's like, there's a plane down there.
Jeez. A rather big plane.
Yeah, that's not about the size of a school bus. At least the weight of one.
Yeah. Okay.
So without sugarcoating it, at this point, it's pretty fair to say that Smith knows that he's in some trouble.
That's,
I feel like that
there's no coming back from.
There's no, I don't know if laconicity. The laconic voice that he had was probably gone at this point.
Yeah, it probably took a serious 180.
Yeah, a little bit more serious now.
Yeah.
And so, like, because he's looking out, like he's flying, he's looking out his windows, and he sees skyscrapers on either side.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're looking for clouds, you're not looking for windows when you're flying.
No.
So not a good situation for him. Noise from the engines gets even louder. This is from eyewitnesses again, because at this point he guns it and starts to try climbing, right? Because like what? To be fair, like what else are you gonna do?
Yeah, that would be the first.
Yeah.
So even a seasoned pilot.
Yeah.
Go back up.
Yeah, up. And like you can imagine, it's already pretty loud because this plane is flying at the 22nd story.
Yeah.
And now it's getting even louder because it's like these two like giant engines gunning it. Which, again, gunning the engine is not going to help him later on. Spoiler, but we'll get there.
Okay. Shit.
So the problem is, if you remember, though, he thought he was coming in for a landing, so his landing gears are out.
Right.
And landing gear down doesn't really help with your ascent. Like if you've been in a plane,
it's going to be a drag.
Yeah, you notice how when you take off a plane, it's almost like as soon as you leave the ground, they retract the landing gear.
Yeah.
And that's because, like, literally, it's a drag because you have the wheels down and you can't.
Not very aerodynamic.
No, exactly. So that's not helping. So people on the ground level, they're just like standing there, jaws open. Which, to be fair, like, what would you do? That's such a surreal thing. Whenever you see something somewhere it's not supposed to be, like that kind of plane.
Yeah.
Like, what do? You're just like, your mind can't even process it.
I would think it's not the instant sort of instinct to like a fight or flight. Like it's neither. It's just kind of duh.
Yeah.
That can't be right.
Yeah, and that's like, I guess the closest analogy or the closest touchstone we have is like when you see videos of like the planes flying into the World Trade Center. Like when that first plane is flying towards it, like, you know, people are getting nervous, but there's no like freak, like they're standing and staring because it's like, that's low. That's kind of strange. Is that what's going to happen here?
I think we're especially, we just have a sense of everything's fine. Everything's as it should be.
Yeah.
So when you see something that's so out of context and so not as it should be, can't process it. Like we don't have that sort of instinct.
Yeah.
To be
it's not like in the movies where like, everything happens right away.
This is wrong. I'm going to react to it.
Yeah. And that actually tying into, because this is during the Second World War, and like, I'm just finishing up the Hardcore History podcast on the First World War, where they didn't even have a concept of things like PTSD and like whenever people would say shell shock and they're like, oh no, they're cowards is what they would say.
Right.
But it's just like that idea of like, there's certain things that like just your mind isn't equipped, like it hasn't evolved to deal with. And then when it sees it, it's just like, nope, broken. Can't handle this. And so like, this isn't on that extent because they're not necessarily in like a war zone, but still you're standing there staring because what else it's just like, this is.
I wonder if they thought that they were being invaded.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
Like,
maybe
we the thing we most feared is now happening.
That probably crosses some minds.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like, this is it.
So it's like textbook not being able to look away from a train wreck. It's like happening right in front of you.
Yeah.
This was in the book, so I decided to include it.
Okay.
But it said that like Stan Lomax, he was a radio announcer. I guess during his broadcast, he chimed in with, "Climb, you fool, climb."
Oh man.
Which, like, okay, it adds some like dramatic texture, but it's like, thanks, Stan. Is that what he should be doing?
Just cheering him on.
Like, I guess no, exactly. Like maybe it speaks back to like not knowing how to process the situation. So whatever, like you say whatever comes out of your mouth.
Exactly.
But it's a
little more eloquent than what I probably would have said. But.
That's fair. Yeah. It was the 40s.
Yeah.
They didn't have swearing
yet. That's how everyone talked. Exactly.
So then at 9:55 a.m., 28 July 1945, old John Feather Merchant, the B-52, slams into the side of the 78th and 79th floors of the Empire State Building. So it was 102 floors.
He was climbing.
He made it most of the way up.
He's getting there. How many floors are there?
102. So I would guess on our little visual aid here, it'll be on our social media. It'd probably be right around there.
Yeah.
Like 3/4 of the way up, basically.
Valiant effort.
Yeah,
Smith.
he came close.
Close.
Anyway, we'll get back to that. But first, I wanted to do sidebar number 2.
Okay.
Again, to illustrate what kind of person we're talking about when we talk about, like, Smith.
Okay.
Like, we're not talking about an incompetent pilot. We're talking about someone who had a ton of experience and just got turned around. And that, yeah.
Sure.
So I wanted to talk about, have you heard of the Doolittle raid?
I've not.
Okay. So it was a raid in the Second World War, because we're talking about the 40s. Mm-hmm. It was commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Jimmy Doolittle. Mm-hmm. So he volunteered to lead a top secret attack on Japan in retaliation to Pearl Harbor.
Okay.
This might ring some bells at some point. I think actually the movie Pearl Harbor showed the Doolittle raid. I don't know if you've
that movie.
You can skip it.
Yeah.
Don't. Yeah.
It looks kind of dumb.
You like Michael Bay movies? Skip it.
Yeah. Is that one of his movies?
It is.
I didn't even know that.
He tried to do like a serious whatever.
Yeah.
And then he was like, Transformers.
Punch your weight, Bay.
Basically. So it was 16 B-25 bombers, so 16 of these exact types of bombers.
Right.
80 airmen in total, which is another like, that's like, I don't know, maybe I should brush up on my modern history, but I feel like what's extra impressive about a lot of the stuff you hear about the Second World War is that you'll get things that's like 16 bombers, 80 crewmen. You have radio, but you don't have GPS. You don't have a lot of the modern stuff. You don't have night vision. And there's just like, they coordinate these things that are like, you fly this way for this long and then we'll get there.
Yeah.
And like, even like artillery in the Second World War is all based on like charts and like reports of where it's landing.
Just fly for hours in darkness. When the lights come on in the ground and the anti-aircraft bullets start flying at you,
you know you're close.
You'll know you're there.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, it's
and hang on to your hats.
Yeah. So this raid targeted Kobe, Yokohama, Osaka, and Nagoya.
Okay.
I think most of it. And Tokyo. Most of it was targeted at Tokyo.
Right.
So the plan was to fly over Japan, bomb the targets, and then land in friendly airfields in China.
Okay.
So they're taking off from the Pacific, like flying over Japan, bombing, and then making it to China.
Making a U-turn.
And then they refuel and continue on to Chongqing, which I guess was a fairly safe area of China.
Okay.
During the Second World War. Mm-hmm. So they basically, so they made it to the Japanese targets. Another little bit of like texture to this. They actually had to leave early because the Japanese spotted them and caught on. So like, and just you should read about the Doolittle raid. This isn't exactly what we wanted to talk about, but it's super cool because it's the first time that they flew these bombers off of aircraft carriers.
Oh, okay.
Imagine a school bus taking off of an aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
And they didn't even know it would work. So they were like, this raid is up in the air until they tried it with one and it worked. And they were like, okay, we're doing it.
Okay.
Which was anyway. So they hit their targets in Japan and they travel on to China. But the homing beacon that they were going to rely on in the airfields just didn't show up because I think the guy on the ground, like it was too dangerous to actually light it up.
Okay.
So now like they hit the targets and now they're like, all right.
Mission accomplished.
So now they're basically looking to take a bite out of a shit sandwich because like they're flying towards China, but they don't know where they're going to land.
Right.
So best case, you'll make it to Russia and land in relatively friendly airfields.
Yeah.
And one of the bombers actually did that.
Okay.
But then the crew got detained because Russia technically wasn't in the war with Japan, so they didn't want to get in. Anyway.
Yeah.
Next best case is you bail out over China because you run out of fuel. You basically fly as long as you can and then just jump out of the plane.
Yeah.
And that's what most of them did. And then with the help of Chinese
bet.
guerrillas, they made it to safety.
Great.
Some didn't, and they got captured and eventually killed by the Japanese. And then the next best case is that you do the same thing, but you bail out over the East China Sea, and you get picked up by, like, your aircraft carrier or whatever.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. But what's impressive is 80 airmen in total, and only 7 of them were captured and killed.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty darn good.
Yeah. But all of this, sidebar, to talk to like the constitution of them, these people that do it, because this is like an all-volunteer raid, first of all.
Oh, okay.
And this is exactly the kind of people that would be like Smith. Like, they're just like, well, we got to get this done, so let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And then it also obviously talks to the cockiness of Smith in that original laconic reply, where it's like, he wasn't on this raid, but you can totally imagine one of these people being like, yeah, I bailed out over China after bombing Japan, and they made it back okay.
Yeah.
I think I can make it to...
Yeah, this is nothing to me.
Got this. But he did not got this. So, he's hit the Empire State Building.
Okay.
The shit continues to hit the fan, though. So, hitting it is like the start, basically.
Okay.
So, eyewitnesses said at the moment of impact, there was basically silence and then a massive explosion. So, this is almost like cinematic. Like it happens, and obviously sound waves and stuff, but like there's the hit, and then boom. And we'll talk about the boom.
Because the Empire State Building was rigged from the inside.
It's true.
False flag.
You heard it here first. You heard it here first.
No.
No, not at all.
Continue.
No conspiracy theories. So, a fireball shot upwards and glass rained onto the street, basically.
Okay.
So, 10 office workers, Smith, the pilot, and his 2 passengers were instantly crushed or burned to death.
Sure.
And then a 14th person died later of their burns.
Oh, God.
So that's 14 people. One of the people killed, and this is kind of one of those morbid fascination things, but it's like one of the people that got killed were propelled out a window, and his body landed on a ledge 7 stories below.
Oh, wow.
Which, that's another one of those things where it's like, it's one of those like...
A ledge of an adjacent building?
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh
and
my
it's just
God.
like, it's bonkers because it's another one of, it's like watching, it's like you seeing the bomber fly high. It's like human life is so like sacred, but also still governed by physics. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you have this
Very
impact.
unkind physics.
Exactly. You have this impact, and then it's just like, just as like, you know, anything else would, it flies out the other, like this guy flies out the building and lands on a ledge.
Like as fast as that plane is going and coming to a dead stop,
Yeah.
that's how fast you're going to go.
Exactly.
Physics dictates that.
And can you...
And guess what, meatbag?
Yeah.
Not gonna end well.
No, and it just on the theme of what we were talking last time of trying to put yourself in the shoes of these people, like I can't even imagine what it's like to be like sitting at your desk doing your job and then flying through the air.
No, yeah.
Just terrifying.
Yeah.
So you might ask, how massive could the explosion have been?
How massive could the explosion have been? Do
Well,
tell.
so like I said, the bomber was just the size of a school bus. It wasn't like the size of, say, 767,
Right,
which is
right.
what flew to the World Trade Center. So, when the bomber wedged itself into the 79th floor, it kind of hit on an angle, and one of its engines tore off the wing and slid across the floor. So remember how I said he gunned it to try and climb?
Yeah.
So he has all of this momentum heading upwards,
Right.
hits the building, and then one of the engines just
Goes into the
takes
building.
off. Yeah. So he stops,
thing's
plane stops, engine keeps going.
Yeah.
And it was cranked.
It was
so
cooking.
basically, it ignites a trail of fuel that's left. Like, it's sliding along and igniting the fuel behind it. Like, horrifying DeLorean.
Right.
Like, just the worst. But that's the image, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's... Yeah. And the other thing... So these...
Horrifying DeLorean.
Right? Like, it's just... That's the first thing that came to mind. But it's just awful.
Yeah.
Possibly because I'm staring at my Back to the Future DVD set. Right there.
There it is.
But anyway, so the other thing is these B-25 bombers carried oxygen tanks,
Okay.
like a lot of them.
Okay.
So they spilled out of the bomber onto the 79th floor, and oxygen tanks and fire don't really do well together.
They don't mix well.
No. So that fireball, that's where that came from.
Okay.
Luckily, the other engine did no damage. No, it did. So it burst through an elevator shaft, so it also detached.
Okay.
Burst through an elevator shaft and plunged all the way to the basement,
Wow.
trailing behind it 3,000 liters of ignited gasoline that turned the stairwells into fiery waterfalls down to the 75th floor. Oh my God. So, like, that first one, like, DeLorean's out the side of the building.
Yeah.
This second one, like, finds its way into an elevator shaft and just, like, takes this, like, trail of fire with it.
Yeah. Swan dive from the depths of hell.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Can you imagine being... No, don't imagine being up there. It's
No.
horrifying. Like, we unfortunately, we have a more recent contextual example with, like, audio recordings that will scar you for the rest of your life. But this is, like, that in the 40s.
Yeah.
Jesus. So, oh, no, sorry, I made a mistake. That was still the first engine. The first engine...
Oh, it careened and then found its way.
No, exactly.
Jeez.
So, the second engine also rips free. And it crashes through the thankfully unoccupied 78th floor.
Okay.
So this building is at this point like 15 years old. So maybe there's like turnover, and
Sure.
like just nobody there yet.
No one
but it's
there.
empty. So
It's in a
thankfully it's empty.
Yeah.
And it breaks into chunks and flies out the opposite side of the Empire State Building. And it actually plunges through the roof of an also unoccupied adjacent building.
Okay.
So kind of sucks if you own that building, but
Yeah.
luckily no one's
No one's there.
because now there's an engine
But
in
I'm
it.
sure it's catching
But
fire and
for like the imagery, exactly, it caught fire as well. So imagine like an arcing fireball through the sky, going out the side of the Empire State Building and just into the adjacent building.
it's unthinkable.
No.
I just think of a stupid Michael Bay movie.
Yeah,
But it's in that sort of with edits and like
yeah,
Like to picture that in real life, I can't do it.
No. Yeah.
Like it would just happen quickly and probably spectacularly yet anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
That's how things go in real life.
Because it's exactly, especially like at this time, like you don't have cameras everywhere and cell phones, and so nobody filmed this.
No.
And like if you know how fleeting memory is, like you'll picture it, and every time you picture it, it's a memory of a memory, so it degrades.
Yeah. Instantly, you've changed it in your brain.
Yeah. Piece. So yes, bonkers. So let's talk about Betty Lou Oliver. She was an elevator operator whose car was on the 76th floor.
Okay.
So one of the fragments of the second engine snapped the cable on her car, which goes into free fall from the 76th story.
Oh,
I know, right? My nightmare.
That's bad luck.
Like I don't think about it when I'm in an elevator, but if I do think about it, I think about how high I am.
I think about it every time I'm in an elevator.
Yeah. Like especially sometimes when like I'll go to a meeting like downtown or something. I guess because of the way the human mind works, maybe like you step into this box and then like it's just contextual. It's like whatever, I'm standing in a box.
Yeah.
And then like you feel it moving around and stuff.
Yeah.
It's not always that I think about the fact that like I'm in a box that's now being propelled upwards, and at any time it could stop going up and start going down in friggin' free fall from the 70s. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it ends up in the basement.
Okay.
But here's some good news. Betty broke both her legs and her back, but survived.
Wow.
Yeah. Which...
Incredible.
Jeez. And she was actually saved by a Coast Guard that happened to be walking by the Empire State Building when it happened.
Oh, man.
Yeah. His name was Donald Maloney.
Way to go, Donald.
And then, actually, on top of that, he then ran up 79 flights of stairs and carried another survivor back down to ground level. 79 flights. He ran up 79 flights.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and then carried someone down.
Jeez.
It's the 40s, man.
That's some gumption.
Yeah.
Some grit.
So, amazingly, 7 people survived the nightmare on the 79th floor.
Wow.
Because they fled to a room basically on the opposite side of the building. Okay. And they just, like, barricade. Luck.
Waited it out.
I'm going to say luck.
Yeah.
Like, they picked the right spot.
Right.
Because, like, they dodged the fiery Inferno engine.
Uh-huh.
And, yeah. So, obviously, on top of Donald Maloney, just like in 2001, the New York Fire Department were badass. They could only make it to the 67th floor by elevator, and they basically had to drag their equipment and hoses and everything up the stairwell the rest of the way. Okay. So at least like 10, 12 stories.
Right.
They put out the flames in like 40 minutes. Oh yeah, and this was another thing. So one of the people that barricaded themselves in that one room when the plane hit, they were so sure they were going to die. One of them, she pulled a ring off her finger and threw it out the window. Oh. Just as a thing, like, I don't know, this act of despair. I don't know. You do weird things when when you think you're screwed. But anyway, so they put out the flames in 40 minutes, and the firefighters actually found the ring on the street, which is another one of those like,
is there anything they can't do?
No, exactly.
That's good.
So in total, you asked about casualties. 1,500 people made it to safety, including 40 that were actually on the observation deck above the impact, which is also amazing. And then only those 14 people that I mentioned were killed, and 25 were injured.
Jeez, that's favorable.
Yeah,
I would say
like that went
for something like that. But what about like the plane hit? Obviously, it didn't go through, or it just sort of like crashed.
Yeah.
And fell. I'm assuming into the street.
No, there's pictures. It's like when I said like it wedged, seriously it
stuck in.
Stuck.
Oh, it didn't fall.
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
How did they get it out?
That's actually a great question. I didn't think of that. But there's pictures, and maybe we'll link to one. But there's pictures of it like stuck in the building, and like because there's someone start standing like. I guess the way it hit and the way the Empire State Building is built, like you can stand in one part and somebody took a picture from that part of where the impact is. You can see like workers standing there, and like you see like the wings and stuff of the plane. Like,
so I imagine they had to like dismantle it somehow.
I guess
as much as they could.
Yeah. Again in the 40s.
Jeez.
But again, probably not a lot of health and safety standards then.
No,
so they were
get
like,
out there and take that plane apart.
Do it. And do it We built this building 4.5 stories a week. So
do that
get
in a
this
day.
plane out of here.
Yeah.
And get back to work.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so that like thousands of New Yorkers will forever remember the horrifying sight of a B-25 bomber exploding into the side of the tallest building in New York City in 1945. And unfortunately, that'll be a bit of a premonition. But
But in this case, it's during a time of war.
Yeah.
But just oversight
Yeah.
and
like
bad judgment.
Bad judgment, I would say to a certain extent, like a kind of cockiness that is justified based on his experience.
Yeah.
Sort of. That's kind of what drew me to this one. What I found interesting is like, I'm generally interested in the Second World War and like the people obviously that fought it. And it's the kind of, you totally see where he's coming from.
Oh yeah.
Like you can totally see where he's like, this is flying in fog is not a problem for me.
Right. At the same time, it sort of speaks to a certain, like, don't take any situation for granted, be it, being a part of the Doolittle raid or flying from Boston to Newark.
Yeah. Which I guess, like, that's where all this airline safety came from. So, I mean, I imagine there was a lot of...
Usually those kind of things come from tragedy. And
yeah, a lot of regulatory reform probably came out of this.
Yeah.
The other thing that also kind of... Like, I was looking at a map and, like, just trying to figure out... So at the time, the Empire State Building was the tallest building by a bit in New York City.
Right.
And he's flying from, like... So, like, Boston's sort of up here. Maybe we'll post a map or something. But, like, if you draw a line from, like, Boston to where he was flying to...
Yeah.
Like, it passes through New York City. But, like, it's like you've got this sea of buildings that are more or less the same height, and then you have this one kind of sticking out.
Yeah.
How do you hit that? Like, what are the odds of like hitting that specific?
I know.
Right?
Well, especially since he was so low to the ground.
Yeah. Like there's so many other things that he could have hit.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, there's this sort of phenomenon, I guess, from like it comes up a lot in like athletes' training regimens and stuff, and just like the way that you say like it came up in archery is where I'm thinking of specifically.
Okay.
Where like there was somebody talking about the mentality of like hitting a target.
Yeah.
And how if you want to hit a target, avoid any kind of negative language. So like if you're flying, if say like you want to hit the bullseye, if you're using the words "don't miss," that's already like you're feeding your mind 2 negative words.
Okay.
So you're gonna miss, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Whereas if you feed yourself the words like hit it or like on target, something positive, you're more likely to hit the target.
Okay.
And in the same way that like, when you're driving a car, you kind of drive where your eyes are.
Yeah.
So those things together, I think maybe might explain why he kind of like ended up hitting this one landmark. Because I imagine like you're flying and you're like, I don't want to hit that. Don't hit. That's already 2 negatives.
Don't hit.
And you're like staring at it. Like I guarantee he was staring at the Empire State Building and like telling himself not to hit it, and like subconsciously, it's like that could have been like pulling him towards it.
A subconscious tractor beam,
something like that. Yeah,
yeah. Because any other building, he probably would have cleared it.
Yeah, could be
in the city.
Yeah,
like if it was that much taller.
Yeah,
and he made it to 76. Yeah, he probably would have just maybe taken out a spire.
Exactly. Yeah,
it's too bad.
So anyway, maybe we'll post a link to the map with like a line on it or something, because that's kind of what baffled me a lot about this was like it's a relatively like small target. What would the odds be of hitting it? Right?
I think maybe panic might have had something to do with that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so that's the bomber blitz in New York City.
That is a disaster.
That is a disaster.
Indeed.
How about the music that it made us listen to? You want to go first, or should I go first?
Well, for consistency, I guess I'll go first.
All right.
So, my first thought was to sort of think of the music of the time, which I don't really know what it would have been. Some kind of like that's kind of New York City kind of flapper kind of.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, who wants to listen to that? Nobody. So
I like it.
I told you before, mine is really on the nose.
Okay.
I went with. It's a German band.
Okay.
Called Einstuerzende Neubauten.
Okay.
Which means collapsing new buildings.
Okay.
Or new buildings falling down or something like that.
All right.
So,
yeah.
all right. But it's a song. It's not so much a song as it is a performance, because it's not on any of their albums. It's a video, and it's called Autobahn.
Okay.
And it's them in this sort of setting. It's like a junkyard or something. I think it's from 1984 or something. But their thing was, they were one of the early sort of industrial bands, and they really put the industrial in industrial. They would like beat on pieces of metal, and like shopping carts were a big thing, and just like, but this video is them just beating the crap out of different pieces of metal and machinery and this and that. And there's even one guy like digging.
Okay.
And I gotta think it's mic'd or something, but he's just digging a hole. And that's part of the song.
Okay.
Or the piece or whatever it is. But I remember seeing it when I was getting into like for me, metal was sort of the gateway into like sort of extreme and obscure music, and then from there it was like, give me the weird stuff, give me and that at the time, like I would see it on Much Music, which is like the Canadian MTV, and like City Limits, which is the alternative show, and it was just so extreme, like I couldn't deal with it, because the sound of it is just chaos. Like it sounds like a building collapsing. It's just and this sort of, they almost always would sing in their native German. So this guy like yelling and intoning over it. And I don't know what he's saying. Right. Someone who spoke German would, but it is crazy. Now I really enjoy and appreciate it, but at the time it was too much. Like I thought that was as extreme as music could get. Right. Little did I know, but at 14 or 15, I was like, oh, that's too much.
Yeah.
But as far as the soundtrack of the kind of chaos that you described today, I think it works. Yeah. So I'll send you a link to that video. It's on YouTube, and
sweet,
you can check it out.
Yeah. We'll link it too.
We'll link it.
So mine,
over to you.
Sounds like kind of went in the opposite direction.
Okay.
Weirdly. I don't know if I overcorrected from last week or what. Or last.
From black metal?
Yeah. So I went with a band called Oh Hiroshima. Have you heard of them?
Nope. I've not heard of them.
So they're formed in 2007. Okay. They're from Sweden.
Okay.
4 dudes, and they're post-rock.
Okay.
And we talked about you just getting into Mogwai recently after me, like... I remember when I first discovered post-rock, probably like 2004 or something. I've been listening to like a lot of indie rock, and then when I discovered Mogwai and Do Make Say Think, I started listening to them, and I'm like, whoa, it's like the music I like, but no words. And I thought it was so like groundbreaking. Yeah. It is in a lot of ways, but like is just like at the time it's something so different.
Well, it opens up a whole new door of the music is sort of the lyrical element.
Yeah. So having said that, these guys do use some vocals, but it's like very subtle.
Right.
It's kind of like some subdued electronic stuff to it too.
Okay.
They're on Napalm Records. Which actually turns out have like a lot of black metal bands, and Hoobastank. You remember Hoobastank?
Oh yeah,
The Reason.
Yeah.
I rewatched that video and I was like, I
love that.
I know, right?
Because the first it's about a guy who screwed up, and the first lyric's like, "I'm not a perfect, like, I'm not perfect."
Yeah, exactly.
Look.
That was weird. I was like scrolling through their or their like band list, like that. One of these things is not like the other. So in their latest album, but I think it's like in 2015 at this point, is In Silence We Yearn. And the song I picked is called Ellipse. It's the first track on the album.
Okay.
It's like a very mellow, atmospheric kind of thing. And the reason that I picked it is because when I was reading this story, it's sort of like, I picture this happening. I focused less on the chaos and more on the surreal nature of what was going on.
Right.
And in my mind, this track came to me as like the soundtrack of what would be like a silent montage of like Smith trying to avoid the building and then crashing, and then like I'm picturing like super slow-mo of like the engines and igniting their fire and stuff. The imagery, like, it conjures some like really morbid but like just bizarre imagery.
Yeah.
Would be like, again, cool in a morbid way.
Right. Like kind of almost cinematic.
Yeah, just anyway. So, and it also kind of like Yeah, that's where I came from. It's just very like surreal and atmospheric. Probably also I realized maybe a little bit of word association because their band name is Oh Hiroshima, and then Second World War, stuff like that. But mostly it just came to mind because just like good soundtrack to like this silent montage of
chaos and
yeah.
So
those are the recommendations. You probably heard a bit as we were talking about them, and we got links to everything. So next time we're going to be getting nice and toasty in 17th century London.
Nice and toasty.
Nice and toasty.
Gotcha.
So get your song picks ready, and we'll be back next time because this has been a disaster.
Cheerio.